In this, the third installment of a 5-part series on getting back into shape, Betty Friend and all of our friends here at Sports Illustrated are going to get us to work here on the trunk of our bodies just a little bit more. Now, you know, the trunk is the right word for some of us, so let's go to Betty and the group and find out some good exercises to use on getting that part of our bodies together. All right, here we go again. Since all of these exercises are designed for the trunk of the body, we'll just ask you all to get up and join in with us. Naturally, no one should exercise without consulting a doctor or knowing their general physical health. We don't want anybody to cause themselves any problems. So if you have any questions about your health, see a doctor before you take on any type of fitness program. Well, tomorrow night we're going to move below the belt and start working on that part of our bodies as we continue our week-long series on getting back into shape. Join us tomorrow night, won't you? For Channel 50 News, I'm Rex Havlin.
As we shape public policy for the next timely actions and wise certain to effect the decision, it is your responsibility to establish priorities for state.
They're going to elect the person who was declared unqualified.
Only 2 candidates that file for the office, yes.
Are you ready, Jerry? Isn't it possible that the Fifth House could be left unrepresentative down in Indianapolis as long as this battle between the Republicans and Democrats continue? And are you willing to allow this to continue?
Susan, I think that is the tragedy of this matter up to this point. The Fifth House District has been underrepresented during the period from the point that the House expelled Jules Blake Taylor to this point. It has had a vacancy, a vacant position, has not had the benefit of that representation. And I might say that that is not a matter of our being willing to accept that or desiring that. That is a direct result of the arbitrary action of the Republican members of the House of Representatives in refusing to allow Jules Blake Taylor to take the seat that he has won based upon the votes of the people of the 5th House District.
Now, you know, because of our general lack of activity during the winter months, we tend to add up some extra baggage in our stomach and below the belt, so to speak. So tonight we're going to get some work on that area to try to get some of that excess weight gone. So now let's get with Betty and the group and find out what exercises can hit below the belt. Well, I guess it has to start someplace in working on the torso. So we start with the ever-favorite setups. Now be very careful to notice that these setups are not done with the legs straight. She stressed that the legs should be bent during setup exercises. Now, needless to say, anytime you start out doing an exercise program, you must start out gradually and build up. So let's just start out with doing 25 setups this evening. Put your hands either behind your heads or to your sides, whichever is more comfortable for you. And then start. Be sure to let the stomach muscles do the work. Don't pull up from the shoulders and from the back. Make the stomach muscles pull.
8, 9, come on, 10, knees bent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We're only up to 16 of them.
7.
Keep doing them.
Do the work now. 8, 9, 20. Only 5 more. 1, 2.
What is this? Somebody just sitting back there?
3, 4, and 1 more.
I wish I could have done that. Now, Betty, you know, you were saying let your stomach do the work. By the time we got there to about 20, I was ready to let any part of my body do the work. Is that normal for on this type of activity?
Most people generally have their shoulders and their arms do the work instead of the stomach. For example, like that. They pull up with their shoulders and their arms, so their stomach really isn't doing the work.
So make the stomach do the work. Okay. Let's get the rest of us in shape
Okay,
now.
on your knees. This is for your upper thighs.
Okay, now this exercise is for the upper thighs and hips. You take one leg back, straight out, take it straight up and hold for a 5 count, then you will take it over to the side for a 5 count and back down. We will do each of these 10 times on each leg.
Bottom, come on, 3 counts. 1, 2, 3, no higher than
Now hold for 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over. 1,
Straight out to the side. Good luck on that one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bend and back. Same leg. 2, 2, 3. Chin up, hold.
Take a 3 count to get it into position. Hold for 5. Take straight out to the side. Hold for 10. Then back. Do each leg 10 times and then continue on with the next exercise. Now we're going to try some leg lifts exercises. Now you want to put your hands down under your hips to give some support, and then take your legs straight up. You'll pull one leg down, start with your right leg, and take a 3 count to get it to just even with the floor, and then hold it for a 5 count. Take a 3 count to bring it back to the upward position. Change legs, same thing. 3 count to get it to position, hold for a 5 count, 3 count back up. Do each leg 10 times. Be sure your hands are placed below your hips. That's for safety.
park within 1 mile from the banks of the river as it flows 31 miles through Marion County. Park outside Marion County is being developed and planned by the Indiana Department of Natural Sites, ranging from simple river access sites to fully developed resource areas of from 300 to...
Well, wrapping up this 5-part series on getting back in shape, something that has come to attention of a lot of people is aerobics. And in talking with them, it more or less does everything. It increases the heart rate, decreases the resting heart rate, burns calories to decrease body fat, and a lot of other good things. It's called aerobics. It's aerobic dance. And let's see if I can get through this one. Betty, let's go. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our week of shaping up as much as I've enjoyed doing it. I want to thank everybody at the Sports Illustrated Court Club here in Highland for giving us their assistance. For Channel 50 News, I'm Rex Havlin.
It means that the one eye is going to do all the work for the other one, and unless a patch or another corrective measure is put on the good working eye, then it will take over the other eye, and later on as the child grows up, the other eye won't do anything. It will be, the vision in the other eye will be such as 2100, no vision at all.
What are you finding here so far?
So far today we've screened about 25 children, and 4 of them are to a referral point.
And what does that mean? Is their sight going? Is it to the point of being irreparable?
It means that there's a cause, that there's likable that something is wrong. They will be sent to an ophthalmologist who will do a further examination of their eye to find out exactly what is the problem. The most likable corrective measure would be to put a patch over the good eye, therefore making the lazy eye, the one that isn't doing anything right now, do the work and become strong again.
Okay.
Mr. Sullivan is currently incarcerated in the county jail in Wichita, Kansas. It is unknown at this time whether or not he will resist extradition to Lake County. We are currently in contact with his attorneys to determine that at this time. I think a recent development is important to straighten out also. Shortly, a few days ago, Mr. Britt Sullivan filed suit in federal court attempting to claim $150,000 worth of life insurance which he had obtained on the life of his wife, Sheila Sullivan. These charges were filed before Mr. Sullivan's suit was filed in federal court. In other words, what we are saying is the evidence against Mr. Sullivan was obtained and was sufficient in our minds to obtain a murder charge against him before we learned of his suing for the $150,000 of insurance proceeds for his wife's death.
In Indiana, the governor, the last two governors, Otis Bowen and Bob Orr now, have included their lieutenant governor as a member of their inner circle of policy advisors. And so twice a week, I spend time with that group of people. And I'm involved in those situations in everything from the mental health problems of our state, correction, overcrowding, all those things that are the gamut of public responsibility are involved by that group. And so in Indiana, we have really made the lieutenant governor's job a very responsible job and an integral part of the state administrative team.
Well, we had about 20 or more patients treated this morning from the explosion. Most of these injuries were blast injuries, cuts, facial cuts, cuts of extremity, and some of them blast injuries to the eardrums, and one or two of them were quite critical. Other than that, most of the patients did fairly well.
We also talked to two men who were injured in the blast. They work in the resins plant, and they tell us what happened.
Well, all I can tell you is what happened. We had an explosion.
What time did that take place?
Somewhere around 8, that's all I
Around
can tell
8
you.
o'clock?
Yeah, it's close around between 7:30 and 8. I know
And
it
were
was.
you near the site of the explosion?
Just pretty close, but yeah.
Did you suffer any injuries yourself?
Yeah, flying glass hit me in the face.
Does anybody have any idea why the explosion took place?
Well, I can tell you, 'cause I don't work where what happened.
Mm-hmm.
All I know, it just went. And the next thing I knew, I was just running.
on the floor of the House, Representative Richardson, a few weeks ago, when I tried to amend a bill to provide for public disclosure, stated that he's heard no public outcry, or he's heard no hue and cry for reform. And I'm suggesting that we're now hearing a cry for reform, and we've had over 1,100 citizens in this state, and not just housewives and little old ladies in tennis shoes, but lawyers from Indianapolis and precinct committeemen and county chairmen, county treasurers, people active in Democrat and Republican politics asking for reform. And they'd better listen to that cry and better give that bill a hearing, or perhaps that cry will unseat them in the next election.
Calumet College has something interesting for the public this month, an art exhibition titled Masks.
The exhibition is called Masks, and that's exactly what it deals with. The masks are from various countries: Africa, Guatemala, Mexico, the United States, and they're anywhere from about 1890 to the present. And there are 61 pieces in the show. Masks are from 10 different collectors. And actually, as I began to assemble the show, I received such a remarkable response. People were calling me and saying, I have masks, why don't you borrow some of my masks? And I could have had probably 500 pieces. The gallery's small, it holds, a number. One of the things I think that's interesting is that I have no knowledge of any other mask show having been shown in this area in the Midwest at all. And it's been fun to assemble, and it's fun to live with for me.
The exhibition, which will run until March 5th, Mondays through Thursdays, is located in the Schmidt Building of Calumet College and is free of charge. This is Donna Williams for Channel 50 News.
A volunteer of the American Cancer Society, Verlin Mack is a medical miracle. After suffering through 7 cancer or cancer-related operations, he now spends much of his time preaching the hazards of smoking to high school students. And he has a lot to talk about.
And I got out of high school and went to the CCCs, and that started my smoking. I started to smoke Bull Durham for a nickel a bag. And then now I've gone into cigarettes, and I got to a point as chief fire inspector for Hammond, I was smoking 3 to 4 packs of cigarettes a day. And of course, somewhere down the line you have to pay the price for smoking.
And pay the price he did. Over a 2-year period, doctors found 19 to 25 malignant tumors and gave Mr. Mack only 18 to 20 months to live. What followed was a radical neck dissection, removal of a number of lymph glands, and life-saving cancer treatments. Through all this, Verlin Mack says he has now turned to a personal vendetta against smoking.
This is what it means to me. Everything is gone from the side of my neck. Everything is gone. It took 4 medical teams to take turns tying off the blood vessels and the nerves and make a new route of blood to my brain. This side is all gone. I'm sunk in. Everything is dead. Face is dead, my ears are dead, chin is dead. I can't tell if I'm being bit by a mosquito. I can't tell if I'm getting frostbite. I can only raise my arms this high.
I find that some students will come up to me and say, Mr. Mack, my mother and father both smoke. What can I tell them? I say, well, no amount of my talking to them or you bring home booklets is going to help. They and only they are sucking on a cigarette. So it's a matter of their own choosing. Let the buyer beware. That's what the government says.
The cooperative work training program in the Lansing high school system has something special. High-risk children. Combined, TF South and TF North have 110 of them.
They're called high-risk children because they, chances are, would not necessarily be hired. They need to learn basic skills on how to work in the community. Many of them have difficulty getting along with other people, and we work with them and teach them how to do that. Chances are, if they were not in a special vocational program, they would find it very difficult to get a job.
What exactly does the CWT program provide for these special or high-risk children?
It's a three-phase program. The first phase is related classroom instruction. They're in class 1 hour a day where they work out of a textbook that teach them basic skills necessary for becoming employed in the community. The second phase is on-the-job training. They are placed on a job in the community where they are supervised both by the school and by a supervisor in their working area. And the third phase involves youth club activities. The students are involved in state and national VICA, which stands for the Vocational Industrial Clubs of America.
The CWT program is very successful. There are some students, however, that don't succeed, but there are many students that are placed in permanent, successful jobs, jobs that without the training of the CWT program, they may not have had a chance of getting. This is Donna Williams, Channel 50 News.
And it gives local government, in Marion County, the City County Council and the County Council and other counties, the opportunity to implement a county-wide tax on the sale of license plates. You pay an excise tax now, and this is a small increment to the excise tax that you pay when you buy your license plate. The amount of money involved for any individual taxpayer is modest, but the composite effect of this is to produce revenues that could be as much, if every county in the state enacted every possibility, as much as $45 million a year of additional money for local streets and highways. This gives those counties in the state the option to use this particular funding source if they need additional monies. And if they feel they don't have to use it. It's aimed at those areas of the state that need help the most.
Ordinary X-ray techniques.
Prior to the advent of computerized tomography, the pancreas was an organ that was relatively inaccessible to diagnosis. Of course, it can always be visualized at surgery, but certainly if one can visualize a pancreas and thus its pathological conditions, you would prefer to do it without operating on the patient.
This scanner, housed at St. Catherine's Hospital in East Chicago, was one of the first body scanners in operation in Northwest Indiana, and at a cost of $1 million, it weighs in excess of 2 tons.
Inside this large gray structure called a gantry is housed an X-ray tube. The X-ray tube then moves in a complete 360 degrees around the anatomical structure being examined, in this case, the head. The X-ray tube moves in a complete circle, sends the X-ray beam, a pencil-thin X-ray beam, through the patient's anatomical structure to the other side of the circle where it is detected by a series of detectors. These detectors then send their data into the computer, and the computer generates an image.
The future of the CT scanners will most certainly continue to grow with future breakthroughs, including